Hey guys, it's Sam and this is my July wrap-up. I ended up reading 13 books in June. 10 of those were regular sized novels, 1 of those was a novella, and 2 of those were graphic novels. So since we have a lot to talk about, let's just jump right into it. The first book that I picked up was A Million Miles Away by Laura Avery. This actually is an ARC that I got at BEA, but this was released this month, so it is available now to pick up. This is about a girl whose twin sister passes away, and her twin sister is dating a guy who recently got deployed to the military. So this girl ends up trying to tell him that her twin has passed away, and in the process figures out that she doesn't want to say anything because he keeps saying how the twin is kind of keeping him alive and how he assumes that he is talking to the twin who has passed away, and it's all a bunch of angstiness. So in the process of talking to him and kind of figuring out if she wants to tell him or not, she ends up kind of falling for him. Angst, angst, angst. With this book, there's a lot of things that I really enjoyed about it and a lot of things that I didn't. I found the angst just enough for the most part, and that it was sort of believable, but towards the middle to end of the book, it started to get a little unbelievable, and ultimately I felt like the main character didn't have a lot of repercussions for her actions, so ultimately I only gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. I still really enjoyed it, and from the synopsis you will know if you're going to enjoy it. It is a fast-paced read, but overall I don't think the story was anything special. The second book that I picked up was Stray by Rachel Vincent. This is the first book in the Shifter series, and this is one of the series that was recommended to me over and over again by Sarah Jane of the Book Life. I will link her review down below for you if you want to go check it out. But this is about a group of werecats, and our main character Faith is away at college because she's trying to be independent, and she ends up being brought back to the ranch, which is kind of where like the pride hangs out, and is being protected because a lot of the female werecats are being hunted down and kidnapped, and the females are very rare, so it's an urban fantasy surrounding shifters, basically. And I ended up really enjoying this book. I love urban fantasy. For those of you that don't know, urban fantasy is kind of what I started with when I first started reading. A lot of people reread Harry Potter over and over. I reread some of my favorite urban fantasy series. So this just felt like nostalgia and everything. There are a lot of issues in here. There are some things that are a little bit borderline as far as the relationship in here, which I will actually talk about later because I read more books in the series this month. But overall, this first installment I really enjoyed. It was fast-paced. I liked learning about all the new lore. I liked a lot of the relationship dynamics between the family and friends and romantic relationships and everything else. And I thought that Faith in here was a kick-butt character, so I ended up really enjoying this one and gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I then picked up my most highly anticipated release pretty much of the entire summer, and that was Heart of Betrayal by Mary E. Pearson. This is the second book in the Remnant Chronicles, the first book being The Kiss of Deception. Obviously, I loved it. I can't talk much about it, obviously, because that would be spoilery, but I really enjoyed it. I have my review and gush coming up this Monday, so if you're interested in my thoughts, because I know a lot of you have been asking how I felt about this, those will all be up on Monday, and we can talk about it and gush about it, and yes, I really enjoyed it. This one is tied for my favorite sequel of the year, along with The Winter's Crime from earlier this year, so that just tells you how much I really enjoyed this one. I'm really looking forward to the conclusion. We have to wait a year, and I'm very upset. I then picked up Rogue by Rachel Vincent. This is the second book in the Shifter series, and this one I really struggled with. Again, I'm not going to say much about the synopsis, but a lot of the things that I liked a lot in the first book, Stray, weren't really present in here, and a lot of the things with the relationship, the main relationship in here, I found extremely problematic in this book. There were things that I could kind of overlook in the first book, not forgive, but kind of overlooked because of the dynamic of them being kind of like an animalistic society. I can kind of make passes for that. I've made a video about this a little bit, so I will link that on the screen. But in this book, it was just a little too problematic. A lot of things were happening that I just didn't really enjoy, and Faith as a character is really suffering in this book, and I found this book pretty predictable for the most part. I feel like I predicted most of what happened within the first 50 pages or so, so I did not end up enjoying this one. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars, so I plan on continuing with the series because I trust Sarah Jane, and she said that it does get better as the series goes on. So I'm going to be continuing the series, just taking a break before I read the next books in the series because this one just left a bad taste in my mouth. I then picked up Written in the Stars by Aisha Saeed, and this one I actually don't want to say the synopsis for completely because I feel like the synopsis is super spoilery. This is about a girl who's living in America. She is from a Pakistani-American family, and her family is Muslim, so it's about everything involving that and her relationship with her family. She ends up dating a fellow Pakistani boy, but that her family does not approve of. So one day after they find out about him, they end up taking a trip to Pakistan, and everything kind of unravels from there. As I said, the synopsis has a lot of spoilers in it, and I feel like a lot of the things that were revealed in the synopsis didn't even happen until about halfway through the book. so I wouldn't recommend reading the synopsis if you do want to read this, but if you're interested in learning about Pakistani culture or one element of Pakistani culture, then I would recommend picking this up. I will say that there is a trigger warning in here for sexual assault, but if you want to kind of look into some spoiler-free reviews for this, then I would definitely recommend that. Overall, I didn't end up enjoying the story a ton. I found it very predictable, and I found the writing very simple and very plain, and it's just not my kind of writing style. I felt like it needed a little more flourish, a little more meat to it, and just didn't have that. I thought that the story it was telling was overall important, and again, a very diverse story, but I didn't think that was enough to carry it, so I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars. I then picked up A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, and didn't enjoy it. So I know a lot of you are going to be sitting there like, right now. But I have a lot of feelings about this that I can't even begin to put in a wrap up because it's so complex and there's so much going on that I have a lot to talk about it with. So I've already filmed my review. That's going to be going up later this month. Also, we are doing a live show for this. This was the July book for random read-alongs. Our live show was originally going to be today, but it's actually being moved due to schedule conflict, so it's going to be moved to next Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be switching all the things on the Goodreads group, and I'll be saying stuff on Twitter and everything else to let you guys know. But just if you want to discuss this with us, whether you felt positively or negatively about the book, please do join us for that. Like I said, I'll be doing a live show. Kristen, Sarah Jane, and I will be talking about it in depth because there's a lot of things going on with this and there's a lot of thoughts. Overall, I didn't like a lot of things about this book. There are some things that I really did enjoy though, so I gave this one 2 out of 5 stars. Again, look for my review for more in-depth thoughts about it. I will be continuing with the series, but I'm going to be leaving expectations low from here on out. I then picked up Atlantia by Ali Kandi. This is a standalone book which I thought was going to be about mermaids, and I remember hearing when it came out that it actually isn't about mermaids, and I wanted to read a mermaid book, and that's not really what I ended up getting. But this is a standalone about a world underwater where people are living because they were separated from the rest of society years ago because above ground there's like pollution, radiation, and it's not good and everything else. So it's basically an underwater dystopian. Ali Kandi wrote the Match series, which I did not enjoy, so I went into this very skeptically, but I did want to try this one out. And overall, there were parts of the story that I really end up enjoying. It's kind of a mystery story, and there's a lot of kind of mystery elements there, but I felt like it was dragged on a little too long, the mystery elements, and there were a lot of really cool elements as far as it's kind of like a dystopian fantasy-ish story. But overall, those elements really couldn't carry it, and I felt like it got dragged on, and there was a little bit of unnecessary romance, which is kind of typical for Ali Kandi, so I gave this one 2 out of 5 stars. I then picked up The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender by Leslie Walton, and this book I don't even have words for. I absolutely adored it. This is a magical realism story about a girl who is born with wings, and it's really a character study of her entire family. So it goes back and it follows her grandmother's story, her mother's story, and then her story, and they all kind of interweave. And there's all these other side characters that are interwoven into the story, and it is beautiful. The writing is beautiful. It's very character driven, which I really enjoy. I can't even talk about it. It is pretty much even now with The Night Circus for my favorite book, which you guys know how much I love The Night Circus. It's atmospheric, it's beautiful, it's historical, it's magical. I have a review and gush coming later on this month, so if you guys are interested, definitely check that out. But I absolutely loved this book, and this has definitely made my favorites of 2015. This one I obviously rated 5 out of 5 stars. I then read Just South of Biloxi by Lauren Hammond. This was an e-arc that was provided to me because I was on the blog tour for this book. This is a book that's a companion novel to another series. I believe it's called the Asylum series, and I'm not really sure what that series was about, but when I got the advertisement for the blog tour, it said that this could be read as a companion standalone, so that's how I read it. It's a novella, and I was looking for it to be kind of like a southern romance. It kind of fell flat for me. I'm not sure if I would have read the other series if I would have enjoyed it more because I believe these are side characters from this other series, but overall I felt like it was a very flat story and that the writing was kind of mediocre, a little bit lackluster, and that there wasn't really much to the story. It was very predictable, and again, it was a novella, so it was very short, and I felt like it needed a little more to it. So it was a little cliche and predictable, and I ended up not really enjoying this one. I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. Then was the start of TBR Takedown. I have a TBR that I posted. I did not get through all of the TBR for TBR Takedown, but I did get through a good chunk of it, and I think I did really well. So firstly, I started with The Brides of Roanoke Island by Margot Lanigan. This is a book that's been on my shelf for a very, very long time and has made it into multiple TBRs, but ultimately I decided to DNF this book, which is Do Not Finish. I got about 75 pages in, was not enjoying it. This is another magical realism type story, but I just felt like the writing wasn't really getting me, and I couldn't care about any of the characters, and it was a really cool idea. It's kind of around the Selkie myth, which is a kind of like mermaid myth where like mermaids come out of seals. If you guys are familiar, check out Wikipedia if you don't know what I'm talking about, but I was really interested in it. It's kind of like a fairy tale-ish retelling, but I couldn't connect to any of the characters. A lot of the characters in here are vile, and I don't need to have likable characters, but I need to have at least something. You know, they have to be interesting, but these characters were vile and boring. So ultimately, I do not believe that I will be finishing this. I'm going to be putting this in the unhaul pile. If you guys have read this book and you think it gets better after a certain page number, let me know. I'm willing to give it a shot, but I was just slogging through this and I had to put it down because it was not working for a readathon at all. So I then decided to pick up Old Man's War by John Scalzi. This is the first book in the Old Man's War series. It's a very long-standing series now. It's an adult science fiction series where we are at war and there's intergalactic war and stuff, but you cannot enlist in the military until you are over the age of 75. So our main character turns 75, enlists, and then goes on like an intergalactic war. There's so many things in here. This book is laugh out loud funny, and I do not laugh out loud when I'm reading. Like, very, very rarely do I laugh out loud, but I'd be sitting alone reading, laughing at this book. I think the narrators are hysterical. I love a lot of the characters, and it was a ton of fun. There was a lot of science elements, obviously, science fiction-y elements, but I didn't think that it got bogged down in any way. Sometimes with adult science fiction, I can feel a little bogged down, a little confused, but with this, it was very easily explained, and like I said, there's a lot of really fun characters. It's also rather gory at times, so I did find myself skipping over a lot of the alien battle sequences because there's some stuff that I was just not wanting to read. But overall, I ended up really enjoying this one. I plan on continuing with the series. I thought, like I said, the characters are hysterical and it's just fun, fast-paced. I got through this in about a day. Really fun read if you enjoy science fiction or any kind of fast-paced adventure that reads kind of like a movie. Definitely check this one out. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Continuing with the science fiction theme, I ended up picking up finally Saga Volume 4 by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. Everyone knows about this series. I've just been having this on my shelf waiting for you to pick up because Volume 3 I read last July, which is just insane. So I ended up really enjoying this. It took me a second to kind of get back into it, but overall I ended up remembering all the characters and just flying right through it and absolutely loving it. I love the art style, I love the story, I love the characters. It was amazing. I will say this is probably my least favorite volume, but it is setting up a lot of different arcs for the rest of the series. There's a lot of things happening, a lot of connections being made, so I really did enjoy those elements, but I gave this one between 4 and 4.5 stars, while the rest of the volumes are 5 out of 5 stars for me, but I'm looking forward to the rest of the series, especially that ending though. I then picked up Vengeance Road by Aaron Bowman. This is an arc that was sent to me by the publisher, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, so thank you again. I really enjoyed reading this one. This one comes out September 1st of this year, and it is a Western story. It is about a girl whose father is murdered because he knows the location of a gold mine. It takes place in Wild West, Arizona, so she ends up going on kind of a vengeance tour to take back the journal and to get vengeance and revenge on this group of people that end up killing her father, and along the way she ends up teaming up with a couple of cowboys, and it's just the perfect Western. I just wanted the very typical, what you would expect Western, and this is what I got with it. You're not going to get all the extra bells and whistles, but I absolutely loved this story. It was fun, it was fast-paced, it was atmospheric, it really felt like a Western to me. It's written in a way that it's how people in the Wild West would speak, so that's really cool. Also, when I say 2 cowboys, there's no love triangle. I was really worried about that potentially happening. There's no love triangle, so don't worry about that. If you are interested in a Western, which is what I wanted when I read this, and I got everything that I wanted out of it, then definitely check this one out. The only complaint that I have about this book is that I felt like the ending was wrapped up a little bit too quickly and a little bit too easily. It could have been a little bit longer and it would have been a 5-star book, but ultimately I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. And lastly, I read Odyssey Volume 1, Off to Far Ithaca by Matt Fraction and Christian Ward. And this one ended up being my most disappointing read of the month. I had a rough month anyway with a lot of ups and downs, but this one was just a huge disappointment. This is a graphic novel series that is a Odyssey retelling that is gender bent, so everybody is flipped gender-wise, so there's female Odysseus, there's female gods, etc., and it is a space opera. But overall, I found the storyline very confusing. It's still written almost like the Odyssey is written in, like, you know, ancient Greek. So it was just confusing, and the art style is so confusing. I found myself not knowing at all what was happening. I just kind of pushed through this book because I wanted to be able to review it and really say my thoughts on it, but overall, I did not enjoy it. There's a lot of really cool elements as far as gender and sexuality in here, I will say. Like I said, a lot of the characters are female. There's female goddesses, and there's also characters that are kind of both genders. Again, there's nobody is classified or anything, but there's some interesting things happening with gender fluidity and gender queerness and everything on the LGBTQ spectrum. But overall, that did not save it at all. Like I said, the art style is very kind of muddy and psychedelic, so if you're into psychedelic art, I think you'd really enjoy this, but I just could not track anything that was going on. The only thing that saved me was that I knew the Odyssey myth going into it, so I really could follow the story, but otherwise, this was a confusing mess to me, and I ended up giving this one 1.5 out of 5 stars. So that is it for my reading in July. I had a very up and down kind of month, so comment down below and let me know what you read this month and if you had a very kind of roller coaster month like I did, and let me know what your favorite book that you read this month was. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye!